Today's date is January 23rd, 1997. The survivor being interviewed is Regina Ganz. Her maiden name was Regina Pollock. The interviewer is Rhoda Diamond. The interview is being conducted in Brooklyn, New York, United States of America. It's being conducted in the English language. My name is Rhoda Diamond. Today's date is January 23rd, 1997. I'm conducting an interview with Mrs. Regina Ganz. The place of the interview is Brooklyn, New York, USA. Tell us your name, please.
My name is Regina Ganz.
How do you spell your last name?
G-A-N-Z.
And what was your name at birth?
Rivka.
And your maiden name?
Pollock.
And your address at the
England.
present time?
2800 Ocean Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, USA.
And your date of birth?
August 10th, 1925.
And your place of birth?
Romania.
Okay. And your present age, Regina?
71.
Okay. Would you tell us a little bit about your life before the war in Romania and your family?
Going back to remember it, it's 1939, when the Russian came in and they threw rocks at the big temple when we were children. And that brought on, that the war is on, and we were very scared. But my mother kept telling us she's gonna take care and be together. But after my sister, she lived in Shimlow, her husband went to the army, and she was by herself with a little girl of 1 year old. So my mother sent me to stay with my sister in Shimlow. And I stayed there with her till we went to the ghetto. That was in 1944. After the ghetto, we were a month, and then they took the transportation with the trains, and we were in the trains for a week. And that's awful, awful memories. So I stayed with my sister till we came to Auschwitz. And she had a little girl, and she wouldn't let go from the arm. So the man, that, who it was, begged her in Yiddish, give this kind weg, give this kind weg, and she didn't want to give the child away. So she went on the other side, where they took them to the crematorium. I went on the right side, and they took me in the working places. So I stayed in the barracks 20. And in December, my sister came and she found me accidentally. Somebody told her that she has a sister in barrack 20. She should come and look for me. And she came in screaming, calling my name, Rivka, Rivka, and everybody was looking at her until she found me. I was very weak, and she came and told me that I'm here and I'll stay with you. And she stayed constantly, watched me. After a couple of months, 6 months later, my other sister came from Hungary, 1956, whatever. No, in 1944. And so my older sister, she was stronger, and she took with her clothes, shall I say her name?
Sure.
Her name is Nellie, and my younger sister is Sprinze. And my older sister had some bread with her and some clothes, and I was very weak in the barracks, I couldn't walk. So she brought me bread and coffee from outside, and my younger sister gave me the bread, but it was too hard. I couldn't chew it, so she chewed in her mouth, and she fed me. And she did that a couple of weeks till I was able to swallow. And I came a little bit to my strength. And after that we spent together. The time was, I think, in the summer. After they kept me with them the whole time, making me look that I'm strong enough. If I wouldn't have been strong, they would put me also on the other side to take me to the crematorium. But my two sisters saved me because they helped me with some bread and anything they could help me with. I came to my strength. So they were assigned to go to a working place to cut trees. And it was winter. It was very big snow. But they took cloth, whatever material they could find, and they put on my shoulder and on my legs, and they dragged me to go with them working so I should show that I'm healthy enough. And so we did for a couple of months. They always felt very stronger than me. I became very weak, and I was laying mostly in bed, and then they couldn't take me anymore. And the Blackester, who was in charge of that lager, so she sometimes she kept me in the barracks. She didn't let me go to work, but most of the time I had to when the SS came to check if anybody's left. So she put me under the bed to hide me. They shouldn't find me till they came back from work. And then they were able to give me a little bread and also some soup. And I was with them the whole time. Then my little sister got sick, and she was very weak and scared. And because she was 4 years younger than me, we had to make her look older. So my sister, the older sister, had clothes brought with her from Hungary, and we dressed her up to look older. And we always was hiding her in the back, that the SS man could not recognize that how young she was. And every morning we had to force ourselves to go outside and stay in line. We were 5 in a row, and every one who was on the row had to stand up. No matter how cold it was, how weak we were, we held on one to another, and we had to go from there to work. And we worked in that hills, wherever. We were cutting trees, and we found mushrooms on the ground. We were very hungry, so we ate the mushrooms, whatever they were. Looks like it did something good. And I came back to myself, and so did my little sister also, but we were hiding her all the time because we were afraid they'll take her away. She was only 14 years old. And we struggled, and we went through a lot of problems, a lot of aggravation, because we wanted to be together. And if they took them away to work, I was afraid to be alone. But luckily that woman who was in charge, she felt sorry for me, and she always was hiding me under the bed. I could stay there maybe a week under that bed. She gave me once in a while something to eat. And so we went through a very hard time. One time SS came in, and somehow he found me, and he put me on the bed.
Who found you?
An SS man. And he pulled me out by the hair, and pulled out chunks of hair from my head. I still have it. And he said, "You don't belong here. You have to go into the other lager, the other barracks, where there are sick people." So I had no choice. I had to go along. And I was there, and my sisters came home. They didn't know where I was, but the woman told her. So she got a hold of a man who was a German, but he was a nice gentleman, and she told him what happened to me. And she also started with him, "Please help me take her out from there." So my younger sister kept telling him, we'll give you anything we have. Please help us with my sister. So they came in the morning before they went to work, and the man who was promising them they'll help me, he'll pull me out before they'll go where they're supposed to go to the crematorium. And he pulled me out, and that's how I was saved.
Let me take you back, Regina, to your life before the war. Can you tell us about your family? How many members of your family? You've had brothers and sisters and so forth.
Yes, I am a family of 12. My brothers were the oldest, 2 brothers, and I had 10 sisters. 9 sisters. One passed away when she was a baby. The 9 sisters were the names.
Please.
Okay. The oldest was Raisel. She was married. She had 5 children. Her husband was also in the army. The next one was Hannah. She was also married. Her husband was also in the army. And the third one was Ratza. Her husband was also in the army. She had 3 children. And then was Esther. And Esther was the one that was with me in the ghetto. And she went with her baby. So she was another survivor. And the 5th one was Nellie, Nisl in Yiddish. And she was with me the whole time.
There were 2 sisters with you in Auschwitz.
Yes, my younger one,
Right.
Sprinze,
Right.
and the older one, Nellie. So the 2 of them, we were together till the liberation in Bergen-Belsen. When I think I was always the opinion the Americans liberated us, because I remember the tanks coming in and big buses, and they throwing us chocolates and cans of food and bread and everything. We grabbed and we ran after this. But then I found out as I was reading recently the history that it was the English soldiers that liberated us, and they gave us a lot of things. But that wasn't good, because many of them became very sick from the food, especially the canned food, and they had typhus. So whoever was next to me, friends, in the morning, I found them dead from that food. And so we had to get up in the morning and pull out the dead bodies and bring them to a big pile, one on top of the other. That was terrible.
Let's go back to your family. What did your father do for a living in Romania?
My father worked in a lumberyard.
Mm-hmm.
He had to work hard to support us all, but we had a farm, and every one of us helped out. We helped out with the younger sisters and with the farm, and my mother, we helped her in the house or on the farm to wherever we could. We had cows and horses and goose and chickens, and we collected and we had to milk the cows. We did all that. So we were busy till I went to my sister Esther.
How would you describe your life before the war? Was there a lot of anti-Semitism in your town?
We didn't know about it. We got along with all the non-Jewish people. They came to our house. I had very good friends. Went to their house, and we were sharing a lot of things. It wasn't with neighbors or any feelings of that. I didn't really understand what exactly the war was about.
You felt safe.
I felt safe. I felt safe. I was with my sister, and I always knew she's going to help me. And so at home was always my brothers were there, and they had also a nice house, and they were also at us for Shabbos. They came always. So my mother used to bake all kinds of challis and cakes and plätzlich with zibbel. That was a very big deal. And we had a very beautiful family, close family. My father was very likable. He was loved by everybody, and so was my mother. It's hard. Very hard.
Take a little to compose yourself. Take
So when they separated us, my mother and father was at home. I wasn't home. My mother had 3 younger sisters still at home, and they went to ghetto together. They went to the Wishaw ghetto. I went to the Shumlo ghetto.
Where your sister was?
With my sister. I met my sister, yes. I was together with her, and I stayed with her the whole time. What happened with my parents, with my 3 younger sisters, I don't know exactly. I tried to find out information from other friends. They didn't know. So I took it, they were killed in Auschwitz. I never heard of them. I tried to find it in Israel even. I went to see back the history of our town. And there was names, but there was no date, whatever it was. And so we were struggling, and Bergen-Belsen was very hard, because especially that working place that we had to go every morning, and I just couldn't stand on my feet.
They took you from Auschwitz to Bergen-Belsen.
Yes. Between Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen, I went to work in Uppsala, it was called. So a place that they had working people only, who wasn't well and strong enough couldn't go there. So as I said, because of my 2 sisters, they helped me to be with them, even if I wasn't very healthy, but I struggled and I all my strength to be safe. And so I stayed with them. And I thank them that I'm alive, because I was very bad. Then
when you got to Bergen-Belsen, you were all together, you and your 2 sisters?
Yes, all 3 of us, yes. We were all together.
How was your life there?
We were also struggling. They tried us to make us clean up and do work by the barracks and do things that we could just help out, anything that we were able to do, and we all wanted to work. So we stayed in the barrack, and they tried to, we should help cleaning up. One time I remember it was raining, it was very big water on the ground. We couldn't stand on the floor or lay down on the floor, so there was a big table, and all of us, when we were able to fit on it, were standing up on the table, and we were holding up each other for warmth, because it was winter time, and for safe. So we were standing on that table overnight, a whole night. Couldn't go on the floor, it was very, very bad. And that's why we, in the morning, got a little better, so we were able to go down. But we couldn't lay down, because we were on the floor on blankets. And the blankets were all wet, so we had to go out, put the blankets out to dry them up. And so we were able to lay down somehow on that floor. And we made a little higher the sand, so we could put our heads down. And we waited in the morning when we got a slice of bread and coffee. And if they took us out on the ground to work and work things, so we tried to just push the days and wait a miracle. We stick together, but as I said, it was very hard. It was very hard when we had to line up, and it was bitter cold. We couldn't say a word, we couldn't say nothing, we wanted to stay together. My sister Sprinter kept always behind me. I was taller, so I was hiding her. They shouldn't see her so much, because her face was very young, and she still has very red cheeks, always, and that made her older, so I was able to hold her. And we were in the ground, like, and all of a sudden they wanted us to get undressed, because they shaved our hair, and they gave us that striped robes, dresses, whatever. And it was very bashful, because they made us do it outside, in front of the SS, with the guns. In case you didn't like it, you were shot right away. So we were getting undressed. They shaved us and we put on those dresses so they could, when they took us out of the barracks, so they knew where we belonged because we had the number in the back of the dress, what number barracks we belonged, and that's how we had to stick together. So that's how we went out from the barracks during the day. And we worked many different things. We helped out in the kitchen. Sometimes we carried the big barrels, and we carried cement, whatever it was that we had to do in the lager, till Bergen-Belsen was liberated in April or in May. I think in May.
Of what year?
45. Yes, it was 45. And then when finally we heard the war is over, it was very hard because we didn't know where to go, what to do, who to talk to, who to say anything. So we got all like wild. We ran around. Everybody ran to a kitchen. If it was somewhere a kitchen, you ran for a piece of bread. If it was something, a house, private house, and we ran to get some food. I remember I went into a German family's house. They weren't home. And I went in and I said to my younger sister, I said, look, there is something on the side there on the shelf. And sure enough, she found a big bread. And she found some kind of ham, or was it some kind of food. And we grabbed everything, we put it in a thing, and we were able to take it with us. And we went to find a space where we could sit down. And we finally was a little selfish because we saw the others didn't have much, and how could we eat by ourselves? So we spread around and we gave everybody a piece of bread, and we were sharing, always looking for the other one. I found a little girl that I loved very much. She was much younger, and I felt so sorry for her. Her mother, she was an only child, and I knew her history from before, so I took that child with me, and I kept her with me the whole time. And she was really very attached to me, and I kept her, and I helped her out wherever I could, till I got very sick again. And after I got sick, that was still in Bergen-Belsen, I got tuberculosis. And they took me away from her and from my sister, and they took me in the hospital. In the hospital, I was laying on bed because I couldn't move. And they gave me some kind of medication. I remember there was already the Red Cross taking us over, and they were trying to see what sickness, what thing they could help us with. So that was, what month it was exactly, but it was after the liberation. Mm-hmm. And I was in the hospital. I couldn't go out. My two sisters were out because they were better. And from there, when finally they said, what are we going to do with these refugees? Where are they going to go? Where do you want to go? I said, I don't have no place. I'm a displaced person. Where could I go? I don't know if I'll have anybody at home, and I couldn't go no place. So the government from Sweden told the Red Cross, and they would be more than welcome to take in about 6,000 of us to their country. And they picked out more sicker people, and they were telling me that the next morning I should tell my sister that I'm going to go to Sweden with a ship. They're going to take me from the hospital straight to with the ambulance, the Red Cross. And that's how I came.
And your sister stayed behind?
I was screaming when I was in the train. Before they took me out, I was screaming, I have two sisters. I Sprinza called, and I sprint Nellie. But Nellie wasn't in the train. Nellie was in another place, in a hospital or someplace. But Sprinza didn't hear me. They didn't hear me. They didn't know when I went away because they took me away during the night. And the next morning she came to look for me. She couldn't find me. I wasn't in the room no more. And they all told her I went to Sweden. Then she went to look for my older sister. And she was in another hospital, which somehow she found out where she is. And she also the same thing. She said, I'm going to go away to Sweden in the morning. So my younger sister said, okay, I'll come in the morning and I'll stay here with you and we'll go together. She got there in the morning and she was gone. They took her also away to Sweden. That was 3 months later. So I got to Sweden first, but when I got to Sweden I still wasn't well. And they took me to a sanitarium up in the hills because I had a tuberculosis, and they kept me in the hospital. And it took 3 months till I found one sister. She came to Göteborg, also Sweden. And my younger one, she wanted to go home and see if somebody's left. From 12 children, somebody will come home. So she wanted to go back to Romania. And she did go back to Romania. She found my 2 brothers, Mishadovat and Shmulaya. And they were in the house. They also were waiting to see who was going to come back. But my sister didn't go no place. She knew we were in Sweden, but she still waited. Maybe some other sisters will come back. She didn't want. Finally, when they told her, the Red Cross tried. She gave all the names, and they didn't find them. And she said then she'll stay with her 2 brothers in the same town, Eve, where we were born, because that's where we had the house. And we were there staying, all the 3 and waiting, maybe till 53. And then they went to Israel from Romania. And they found, also through the Red Cross, I got a telegram one day, it was around 55, 56, and I got a telegram that my brothers are alive, and I have a sister, she's in Romania, and she wants to have the address. I should be in contact, and I got the address and got in contact. My other sister was in Göteborg, so she wasn't the same place where I was. I was in a sanitarium. She was well, and she was able to work. But 3 months later, we got together, and in Sweden, I found a family that was very good to me. She came every day. She brought me very nourished food, and she gave me lots of presents and lots of things. She wanted me, I should be there. She wanted to adopt me. She didn't have any children. Her name was Ross, and Karen Ross. She was very good. And she came every day. She brought me always food, and she tried to walk me from the house.
We're going to stop now.
Okay.
And we'll continue with a new tape in a few minutes. This was Regina Ganz. At the end of the first tape, Regina, you were telling us about the woman that was so good to you in Sweden, who came with food and wanted to adopt you.
Yes, yes. And she came all the time to ask me if she could make up legal papers and I could move in her house. She waited till I was able to walk, and she took me to her house. But I didn't want to be adopted, and I didn't want to stay in Sweden. I was very much to come to America. And I explained it to her, but she was still very good. I used to make her beautiful embroidery things, pillowcases, draperies. I wanted to repay her. The attitude, I was so thankful for her. And she was keeping those things, I remember, till I came to America in 48. I was in her house, and she said, see those drapes that you made me in those pillowcases in the bed, everything I made for her, she'll have it forever. And she sent me pictures later on. We correspond with her till about 64. She passed away with her husband. But my sister stayed in Sweden. She stayed in Sweden, and later, as I said, she came to America also, and she lived in, she came to Brooklyn. I have to think back, when did she come here? What year she came here?
You came to Brooklyn as well?
Yeah. She came to Brooklyn in 48. No, 49. She came to Brooklyn.
Tell us a little about your life when you came to the United States. Where did you live? What did you do?
Yes, I came with the ship, like all the people. We stayed in Sweden. We were a place it's called a kosher lager. That means a kosher group, kosher place. We were 600 men and women. We got kosher meat from America, and we cooked ourselves the food, and we baked ourselves, and we took care of each other. We were about 4 girls in a room, and another bungalow was boys, and we stayed there for about 4 years. And that place was for that only reason to wait how we could go to America and what way we could find to come to this country. I didn't have no family at all here. I couldn't ask they should send me a visa or anything, but a lot of them did. But somehow an organization, the Siankov and the Hayas, sent a rabbi. Oh, I wish I remember his name. And he came to Sweden to this kosher lager, and he took our names, and he wrote down everybody's birth and places and everything, and he came back to America for took a long time, we waited. And finally when he came back, he said, I have visas for all of you, but you have to go in school as students. You could go to the Siankovs for the women and yeshivas to the men. So of course everybody signed up, and everybody was more than happy to. And it took again maybe a year till all that was arranged and be able to make up the papers. And I got a visa, and my sister didn't, because she wasn't with me in the lager. She was private, and she worked in Sweden.